So I think to start the discussion, the current disruption has highlighted what we think is quite a significant potential problem for essential fleets that are currently having to deal with excessive workloads, and that's the problem of driver fatigue. So, Paul, I just wanted to come to you first, if I could, on that. Why is this an issue, and are fleet operators right to be concerned about this?
Well, I think they are. I think even in normal circumstances, outside of the current crisis, fatigue is and has been recognised as a major issue for transport operators generally. And there are several good reasons for that. First of all, drivers are often operating at times of the day when their alertness is at a minimum, particularly if they're driving early in the morning. They often obtain less sleep than would be ideal. And the quality of their sleep is often a problem, particularly if they're having to sleep during the day. So even under normal circumstances, driver fatigue particularly, can be a challenge for operators. Under the current circumstances, you can add to that mix workload. And we know from other research in other industries that workload has a significant impact on fatigue. So we've got a situation where individuals are trying to push themselves or being asked to push themselves to meet demand and are likely to be experiencing significant levels of fatigue over and above what would normally be the case.
Okay, and Ian, you work with fleets regularly to support them with, drink and drug testing. If employees consume drugs or alcohol, how does that impact on fatigue?
On fatigue, I'll always defer to Paul's expertise in this area. But to me, it's a catch-22, and no negative spiral. Working hard and then trying to relax and sleep, either at home or in the back of the cab. Drivers could think that this trying to get to sleep is aided by alcohol or sometimes drugs, particularly the central nervous system depressant type of drugs like cannabis. The sleep is then nowhere near as good a quality, and waking up is even harder, ultimately with possibly some hangover effects. This is the point where the driver is still likely impaired and probably unfit. It's also where you see the cans of Red Bull and maybe the presence of some central nervous system stimulants such as cocaine.
A question perhaps maybe just to Paul to start off with is everyone is very familiar with the risks of drink driving, and fatigue, as the evidence has shown, can be catastrophic on the roads. What's the sort of scientific basis of the impact to somebody's driving fatigue?
Well, fatigue has a wide range of effects on cognitive skills, particularly. Essentially, fatigue affects the brain. And it affects the brain in such a way that when we're fatigued, we experience problems, obviously, with alertness. Our response times are longer. But in addition to that basic problem, and specifically relevant to driver fatigue, fatigued individuals don't follow the rules. We tend to take shortcuts when we're fatigued. And so fatigued individuals don't follow the operational procedures that may have been set in place. Our judgment is affected. Our perception of risk is affected. So when we're fatigued, we're more likely to accept higher levels of risk. We do things that we normally consider acceptable. And our judgment generally, our decision-making is affected. So as you can imagine, when you put this into a driver fatigue situation, there are a whole range of fundamental skills essential for good, safe driving, which are likely to be affected by fatigue.
I think we're all aware of the case involving renowned consultants who were found guilty a few weeks ago now, following a prosecution by the Office of Rail and Road, following a tragic double fatality, which was found to be fatigue related. I'm not aware that there was any link to impairment for drink or drugs, but it was certainly fatigue related. What are the legal implications for fleets that don't take this issue seriously? You know, I think they were pulled up for not following management policies. So what are the legal implications for fleets?
Well, for me, it would be consequences could range from vehicle downtime and cost to employee injury recuperation days, especially costly when driver numbers are critical. This could go on to third-party injury, finally to fatalities with a health and safety executive or a corporate manslaughter investigation, such as the Renown case. And any case like this will remove management focus and adds phenomenal personal stress for many years. I think in that particular case, 7 years before it came to court.
Yeah, it was an awfully long time, and you can't imagine the mental trauma that everyone involved in that went through, from colleagues and friends and family, everyone involved in that case. So what measures can fleets take to identify and remedy these problems? I guess I come to Paul for advice on sort of what can companies do to manage fatigue within the business?
Well, I think just before I mentioned that, the Renown case and cases similar to that highlight that it's not enough just to have policies and procedures in place. Organisations need to adhere to those policies that they've put in place. They need to follow the policies that they've established. So in terms of what companies can do to manage the problem, starting point, I think, really is understanding your specific fatigue risks. In other words, what is it that we're doing in our general day-to-day operations which may exacerbate or increase fatigue and driver fatigue specifically? So that's getting an understanding of what times of day organisations are operating, the shift patterns that drivers are operating, whether that has any implications on their sleep patterns or quality of sleep. And once an organisation has a good understanding of those fatigue risks, the contributors to fatigue risk, then they can start to put in place effective policies, training, and awareness campaigns, if you like, to get people to understand the dangers of fatigue, not just drivers, I think management as well, to get a good understanding of what the potential risks are and then what can be done about it, such as training programs.
A quick question with regards to technology. Some of the companies, many companies, have invested in telematics, and they can see drivers and how long, if they're driving for extended periods. I would have sure your recommendation would be for this information to be analysed perhaps more carefully. A lot of we've seen cases now of people driving at excessive speeds, but perhaps they're not looking at excessive periods of times without brakes and things like that, and that would be I would imagine a sensible way to try and at least see if there were scenarios like that. Would you agree? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. I think brakes are essential, not just a legal requirement, but a safety requirement. And we need brakes, whatever we're doing, just to be able to refocus our attention and to ensure that our focus is directed in the right way. If you're a driver, that's incredibly important. So taking regular breaks, even a short break just to stop the activity and get out, refresh a little bit, beyond the legal requirement for breaks, I think is a really important mitigation against fatigue.